I had a remote producer, they would have noticed the music wasn't on. Hello and welcome. So you may have heard the phrase or heard somebody mentioning that they were hiring somebody to help them with their recorded and live content. But have you ever wondered what the phrase remote video production or remote producer actually means? Or maybe you're looking to hire one yourself, or you're thinking about it, but you're not really sure what's involved, and you'd like to know exactly what you would expect from that kind of a situation. And how the heck does it all work, right? It can't be magic. There's got to be some practical stuff behind it. Don't worry about it. We got you covered here. We're going to talk in this show about what remote video production is and how it all works. So come on, let's get this party started, shall we? Hello. So remote video production. This is a topic that's on my mind because it's one of the things that I do. And I just recently did one for somebody, and I'll tell you a little about that in a minute. If you were watching the countdown, you saw a little peek. I gave you a little peek of what I just did. But it's a topic that you probably hear talked about if you're creating any kind of content, and maybe you're curious about it. Maybe you've heard somebody, say that they're going to hire or they're looking for somebody to do remote video production, or maybe you're thinking about it, but you're not really sure what that means and what to expect and how it all works. Got you covered. That's what we're going to talk about. And it's not as much magic as you might think, but the effects and the benefits can feel magical. So let's go ahead. We're going to get into this. But for those of you who are new here, my name is Kathleen. I'm here as your tech coach. The short version of this story is I do technology as my day gig. It's also my hobby. It's also all of my side gigs. So most of the people in my world turn to me when they have a question or if they need help with technology or they're looking for suggestions. And so now I do that here every week for you folks in case you don't have somebody that you can turn to. So welcome. All right, let's take that down. So remote video production. What are we talking about? So this is the concept of you not having to do everything yourself, right? So most of us who are not a huge multinational corporation, right? We're doing things on our own, right? So whether it's for your business, your hobby, your organization, whatever, if you're trying to create any kind of video content, you're having to figure it all out, right? Because there's nobody else. It's like everything else you're doing, you got to figure it out. And so this concept of remote video production has really only been completely practical on a large scale in the past few years. And I have been doing it for a long time, mostly with single business professionals or organizations, but I have evolved recently, and I'll tell you a little more about that in a minute, into much larger operations. So I've seen it from all sides, plus I am a streamer. So I know that real time, the struggles of trying to do this all on your own, right? Because it's hard enough to talk to the camera and, do your content and get everything organized and presented the best way you possibly can. But when you add on having to manage your production at the same time and, adding little things like this to it, it does get to be a lot. Okay, I'm not going to kid you. It does start to feel like a little bit to handle, and sometimes it derails your brain. So the idea of hiring somebody to do this for you means that you can concentrate on your content and somebody else takes care of all the technical stuff. So you don't have to worry about, is the connection working? Because that's one of the things I do. That's part of why there's that little countdown in the beginning, because that's my last chance there to make sure everything is set up and the comments are going to be taken care of, all that kind of stuff. It takes all that burden off of you so that you can just concentrate on you, your audience, and your message. So that's why it's such a popular thing, because, hey, anytime you can kind of focus, the results are always going to be better, right? So how does this work? What makes this happen? What makes this possible? Technology. So there's a couple of different ways to go about this, depending on your preferences, the preferences of your producer, and what it is you're trying to achieve. The one I use most often is what I call one-click solution. And what that is so I use a tool called vMix, which is all kinds of awesome. And with that, there's a service that's provided called vMix Call. So what I can do is I can send the person who's going to be on the air one link, literally one link that they can open in any browser. And that way they can share their video. We can also have a private chat because that's built into it. And that person, if they choose to, can share their screen, all from this one tool. Super simple, super easy. The first time we do it, I usually do an early test because sometimes you have to adjust the browser permissions. And on the Mac, very often you also have to change some permissions on the actual operating system. Once you do that, you never have to worry about it again. It's good to go. And they can pick their camera, they can pick their mic. It's very versatile, very easy. So I did this for years with someone who not particularly tech savvy. And the other challenge with her situation was the fact that I never knew where she was going to be calling in from. So sometimes she had a good internet connection, sometimes she didn't. And with this tool, I'm able to adjust things in such a way so that I could get the best possible results from wherever she was calling in from. And that's another level of the game, right? Because if you are on a not so great internet connection, that's more for you to manage so that your audience is getting the best possible experience. It was just another thing she didn't have to worry about because I took care of it for her. So that is definitely one of my favorite ways to do it wherever possible. Another thing that can be done is you can have somebody, if you already have a setup, like let's say you've been doing it yourself and you like your setup and you want to keep going with it, you just don't want to have to be hands-on while you're doing your content. You can have somebody remote desktop into your machine. Now, again, sounds like magic, but it's really not. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it depending on your operating system and what you're most comfortable with. But with, like, for example, with Microsoft, there is actually a built-in remote desktop thing, so you can do that kind of connection. There's also third-party tools, which offer some different options, which can be a really handy thing for different setups. So literally what that does is somebody sits at a computer wherever they are to connect to your computer wherever you are, and they can move the mouse and click on things and do things, so they can run it from your system with that while you're just doing your thing. So it's still all inside your world and your setup. They're just doing it like they were sitting there in your setup with you, but they can do it remote from wherever they are, which makes things much more flexible for everybody. Another is to work with somebody who's using a tool like Ecamm or vMix or OBS or something like that. Maybe StreamYard too might work at Restream Studio probably, to bring in your Zoom feed. So let's say that you've been doing it on Zoom, you want to keep doing it on Zoom, but in addition to the people who are participating on Zoom, you also want to send that signal out to other people. Now, obviously, like if you're going to send it to Facebook or YouTube or whatever, the people who are watching those feeds would not be able to interact the same way as the people who are in the Zoom session with you, but they would get the benefit of the conversation that's going on. So that is another way to go about it. And it doesn't have to be Zoom. It could be any tool like that. It could be Teams or whatever it is that you're using. Also, this is something that can be done for live streaming, but if you are not a live streamer, if you only like to create recorded content that then you have somebody go and edit, or maybe you edit yourself, this can also be done exactly the same way with exactly the same tools and options, just for recorded videos. The only difference would be that it's not going out to everybody. So however it is that you prefer to create your content, however it is you prefer to work, there is a solution that would work for you. And when you find a remote video producer, they'll work all that out with you, right? You'll have a couple of meetings and you'll talk through everything and figure out what the best combination might be. You'll do some test drives to make sure everybody is comfortable and everything is set up, and you're good to go. So what benefits do you get from this, right? Why would you do this? So, for example, a lot of times when you're doing a presentation of some sort, maybe you're going to, share your screen. Maybe you've got slides you want to show, or you're going to show a website or whatever it is. You're going to show something from your environment, or something that you just want your producer to share. So, and that's the thing. So like, for example, with the way that I do it most of the time with vMix Call, the person can do it themselves, but that does require that they have to get a little comfortable with that option in the tool to toggle back and forth. Or people can just give me the content and I can do it. Or again, if I'm remote desktoping into their system, then I can do it from there also. So it's whatever works best. Again, going back to that person that I was doing this with for years, in the beginning, she would send me slides, but she tended to do stuff last minute, which is fine. That's normal, that's human, but it added to the stress of the whole process. And sometimes she wasn't able to get me the most recent or perfected version of it. So what we started to do was go to online tools. So she started using Google Slides and gave me access to it, so she could literally be making changes while we were doing the show, and it didn't matter because I was bringing it up on my second computer to share with people when she wanted to bring up something to show as part of her content. This is something I do a lot with a lot of different clients, and so this is why it's on my mind. So I'm going to share with you what I'm doing, because this will also show you what I mean by screen sharing. So last night, I did an event with Kevin Rose, which if you're all in tech or NFTs or anything like that, you may have heard of. I've done a couple events with him now around the NFT stuff that he's been doing. So this was an event for a new thing that he was coming out with called Oddities. And it was him and two hosts, plus his producer was also, online with us, keeping an eye on things. So I was running the show. I did, overlays, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to just screen share now so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is the way that the presentation went. This was just the shot with Kevin talking, had the logo on it, and it was the screen that he was showing. But we also had his guest host coming up. And so I was constantly, as we were going through the show, changing it around as it felt right for the flow. We also ran into a technical issue with the other host, and her mic dropped. Sorry, that isn't the best picture. Here we go. We've got a better picture. Everybody's eyes are open. So I was able to switch that out and go from a 3-person picture-in-picture is what we're talking about. So we've got each one of the hosts and then what it is that they're talking about up on the screen. Now, in this situation, Kevin was actually controlling what was being shared. So so one way to do that is he could have just done that from his computer and just kept switching from his camera to that. To make life easier on him, what we did was I sent him another vMix call number so that he had one and his computer had one. So I was able to switch it for him even though he had control over it. This is what I mean by you need to work with your person in order to get the right combination for him, because they were making changes up to the last minute. So rather than worry about getting me an updated copy, he had everything up to date on his machine, and he was able to switch it and show it and go with the flow of the conversation he was having with his hosts. But he didn't have to worry about switching things, right? All he had to do was talk to the camera, and I took care of all the switching for them. There was also, I don't know if there's a good shot here. Let me just see. I was able to bring up a hashtag that they wanted everybody in the conversation to use. Here, you can kind of see it here. Okay, so bring that back up again. So if you look in the upper corner there, you can see oddities. So that's what they had everybody using online and socials who were watching. And it was a big event. We were able to pull this together literally in a couple of days. That was possible because I'd worked with them before, so we had already worked out a lot of details, but still, it was a little juggling. So that's one example. We can also do things like intros and outros. You see me do the intro. I'm going to try it real quick here. Hopefully it won't miss anything. Sorry, that mutes me because that's how I've got it programmed. But so you can do a little video or a title card coming in. At the end, you can do an outro, which is sometimes a little video or another title card type of thing. That's the kind of thing your producer can handle for you and switch to at the appropriate time. You can also do things like overlay. So like what you see here with Kevin and his folks, right? This was a 3-person overlay that showed the different screens. We also had... So there was the one shot that was just Kevin, which I showed you. There was also this one. So this was a bit of a challenge. One person was in the middle of, was actually out in a hotel. Kevin had just moved his office, so we weren't able to get a great camera shot. So normally there wouldn't be quite the stair stepping here, but you see, this is just another layout with all of them here. There was also a title card, which they might have trimmed that off since then. But so that's something else. There's all kinds of different overlays that you can do, all kinds of different layouts. And then you've got things like this, right? So lower thirds, you can share your URL. You can do, things like this, where you're reminding people to subscribe. That's a good thing. Thank you very much. I can also do things like this. So if you watch the beginning of my show, I run this at the bottom. I don't tend to run it during the show, but some people do. And depending on your content, this can be a really handy thing, because this is the kind of thing that your producer can update on the fly. So if you're doing something that's, breaking news or sports or whatever, very often you'll see this kind of thing on there. What else? Call to actions, right? So there's a lot of different ways to do this, but like I talk about, I have a free ebook, which you are welcome to have. It's 130 content ideas, not text specific, generic. But when you need to do content and you're hitting that, blank sheet of paper moment, you can go ahead. So you can go to yourtechcoach.com/content ideas, get the free ebook, which actually you can do. This is not just an example. This is real life, but this is the type of thing with a call to action. And there are different ways to do call to actions. Like one of the shows that I'm going to do another remote production the end of next week. And when they do their call to action, they have a graphic that comes up over here, and then they've got another one for other things that come up over here. So all that kind of stuff is handled. Bringing on guests, right? So that's what I did with Kevin. I mean, technically he was also his own guest because they all came in that way. Moderation of chat is something else that a remote producer can do, or maybe a member of their staff can do. And what that means is when you're live and people are in chat talking like we are now, somebody, very often you're going to want somebody in there to answer questions or, handle issues that come up, that type of thing. So that's something else that your remote producer can do. Another thing, which is very popular and super important, I'll explain in a minute what I'm doing here, is multicasting. So you may be sending out your content right now to one place, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you're sending it. And maybe you'd like to send it to more than one place, but either technically you don't know how to do it, or your system can't handle it, or your internet bandwidth can't handle it. That's something else that can happen. So like I said, with Kevin, the first time we just did one platform, but when we did it last night, we sent it to two. I have a feeling we're going to go to more next time. But that's something else that a remote producer can handle for you, and you don't have to worry about it. You just need to tell them, where you want to go, and they'll take care of it. Now, you will have to give them access, and there's different levels of that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But it is another benefit of working with somebody who can just concentrate on the tech for you. The reason I'm having to look at my so I use this thing called X keys. Let's see if I can bring this up for you. My whole world is a little messed up because I did this, thing last night. So this is my X keys. This is how I switch my show. Most of the time, I can just, to hit a button and it does what I want it to do. So like when I do this kind of a thing, that's just a button, right? That's a button that brings that up, and then it's programmed to go away when it finishes playing. I rebuilt this for the show I did last night, and I didn't get a chance because things have been a little crazy the past 24 hours. So I didn't get a chance to completely reset myself up. Now, the nice thing with vMix is technically it was already programmed, but the labels that I put on everything, I switched out. So it comes with these little pieces of, perfectly sized paper. And what I do is I just write on them, what that is. Now that doesn't work for everybody, but for me, just putting a couple of keywords on there just verifies to me that I'm about to hit the right button. And I didn't get a chance to put all of my labels back. So that's why I keep looking down, because I just want to make sure that I'm hitting the right button. Good thing is, because with vMix, I can save different, what they call profiles. I've got Kevin's settings in his vMix profile, and I've got my settings in my vMix profile. So I didn't have to worry about going in and changing the stream keys and all the other stuff, because as far as vMix is concerned, the two profiles don't know the other exists, right? So because when I'm doing one for a client, that's their setup. When I'm doing mine, it's my setup. And whatever changes I make here doesn't affect here, and vice versa, which is such a lifesaver when you are doing these things for other people and you've got multiple of them going on, very close in time. Good problem to have. I'm not complaining. Another thing that a remote producer can do for you, if you choose, is you can have them schedule things, right? So they can schedule your streams for you. What that means is you go into YouTube, you go into Facebook, you go into Twitter or whatever, and you can go in and say, I'm going to do a stream with this title. Here's the description. Here are the keywords. I'm going to do it on this day and time, and get it all set up. The benefit of that is that will give you a unique URL that you can use to promote your show before you go live. Now, obviously, if you're just doing recordings, this doesn't matter. But if you are doing live streaming, this is important. because you do want people to show up live, right? So, I mean, it's way more fun when there are people in chat. Hey, Marcus, no problem. So that is the benefit of having that. Now, depending on, again, if you're already scheduling your stuff and maybe you want to keep doing that, that's fine. Then all your producer would need is your connection information. And that could either be your account information or could be RTMP. This starts to get technical pretty quickly. But the point is, you can decide that you want to do it. You can decide you want they to have them to do it. And either way, it'll work. One other thing that I tend to do for my clients is not only do I stream it to wherever they want, but I also create a local recording. So what that means is, so like last night we sent to Twitter and we sent to YouTube. And so the stream is still there in both of those places. However, while that was happening, and this is something vMix can do, not all the other tools can, but vMix lets me create a local recording. So as it's streaming out, it's also saving a copy to my hard drive, which then afterwards I can put out on a shared drive, and they can have that to go through and, you know, edit it and repurpose it for later, all that kind of good stuff. Sorry. Must be gonna have a fight, right? So that's just another nice benefit to have. And some people will be like, well, I could just go to, you know, YouTube and, you know, download it or, you know, whatever. And that's true. But the problem is when you are streaming to any platform, even if you keep it at a high resolution, it's still being compressed a little bit by that platform because they're trying to manage their resources. So by creating a local copy, I can create a high-res copy for them. It's nice and clean. And also they don't have to spend the extra time of going to get it because I'm just going to put it out there for them. I send them a link and they're good to go. Very helpful for a lot of people. The main job of a remote producer is to make you look good, make your content look good. And that is what they're going to focus on. That is their driving forces. They want you to be going out there, putting out your very best to your audience without having any stress about all the things it might take to get you there. Not only that, but they will help you with your setup, right? So if you're working with a remote producer and they see sort of like, you know, like let's just say like I had something that was giving a shadow on my face and I'd never really thought about it before, right? I mean, in this case, it's my hand. So I'm kind of very aware of it. But a remote producer would see that shot and go, you know, maybe, you know, do you have something off to your left there? Maybe we can move that out of the way, or maybe we can adjust the light. And so they'll help you with whatever setup you've got. They'll help make suggestions. You don't have to do them, but they will be suggestions that will help you present better and help things look better for your audience. And who doesn't want to look better, right? So it's little things like that. And then if you do want to up your game a little bit, but maybe you're not sure how to do it, they'll help you with those choices, right? So a lot of times the first thing people do is they'll upgrade their mic. Or maybe you didn't have another light, right? You only had the one light coming here, and whatever was blocking you here, that was just because there was no light there. So they would make a suggestion on another light and how to place it and all that kind of stuff. So they are a resource for you to just help everything work out better for you. So even if you only, let's say you only hire a remote producer to just do your lives, but you're still going to do your own recordings. Well, the benefit of having worked with that remote producer is they've helped you tweak your setup so that your recordings are going to look better. Even if you're just doing them from your phone, right? If you just take your phone and you decide you're going to jump on, you know, TikTok or whatever, you already have better lighting and all that kind of good stuff. So that will definitely be a help. So the short version would be that hiring a remote producer is going to take your content to the next level, right? You're going to look and feel more professional, and so is the content is going to come across more professional. But the whole time, all that is happening without any extra effort on your part, and you can just focus on getting your stuff out there. And so your spark, your uniqueness is still there because they're not changing anything about that. They're just helping you achieve the goal that you're looking for. Hopefully that makes sense. It should. But if not, by all means, jump into the comments and let me know. I am happy to get into this a little bit further. Speaking of call to actions, if you'd like to stay up to date on this and some things that I have brewing, probably for next year, but we'll see. Maybe I can pull it off before the end of the year. You can join the mailing list. It's yourtechcoach.com. I just changed it from .net. That's why I keep stuttering. yourtechcoach.com/mailing list. Just need to give me your name and your email address. And that's how I let everybody know what the show content's going to be every week. And then anything else that's going on that I think people should know. You don't have to worry. Like I don't let any advertisers or sponsors or anybody bother you with that. It's just a way for you and I to communicate. So if you'd like to do that, that is certainly an option for you. All right, let me take a bit of water here. All righty. So, so the other thing is, so I forgot to mention, things like the countdown timer that you saw. That is something else that somebody could add for you. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, let me just quickly switch to that. It's probably going to mute me, but we'll just real quick. Come on. This one. I don't want it to go too far because it'll start everything all over again because I've got a program to do things. But that's the kind of thing that you can add. So what would you use a remote producer for, right? Or really, what would you do live video for, or recorded video? So you could do this just for a one-time stream, right? I have clients that I've worked with once, and then maybe they'll come back, maybe they won't. So if you're doing a one-time stream where you really need to focus on what you're doing and you need to release everything else into somebody else's hands, totally an option. You can also do it for daily, weekly, monthly, whatever your schedule is, content. And again, everything I'm saying here, I keep referring to live streaming, but it applies to recorded content too. So again, I worked with that other lady. I've got another one that I'm working with now to get set up for a regular schedule, so that we'll both show up, whatever day and time works for them, and we will record it or stream it to wherever they want. Do both, because that's usually what we do. But that is another option, so that you can start to get your steady content out there at the level that you wanted. Special events. So I have worked on things like what I did last night, which was a special event, right? It was, they do like a podcast, they do other things on a regular basis, but this was something special. They were announcing something, they wanted it to come across differently. So that's what we do, right? So a special event is a big thing for that. Webinars are often a time where somebody is looking for a little extra help. That's what we're here for. Product launches. That's another big time to do things. Product launches can be sometimes a multi series, because maybe they're going to do like a pre-announcement teaser kind of thing, and then maybe they're going to do the original, the main announcement, but maybe to a select group of people, so like they're insiders, and then they'll do a fully public one. Again, it all depends on what it is you need or you want. I mentioned how they do podcasts. I'm talking to a couple podcasters, and I've worked with some podcasters who had just been doing the audio stuff. Like, they were very happy with their podcast and that's what they wanted to use. But then their audience started wanting more. But they were already up to their eyeballs managing their podcast. So what they did was they brought one of us in, so that they just set up like a camera off to the side, so their audience, who's really hardcore, can watch them record the podcast live, right? Including all the stops and restarts and all that kind of stuff. They have a little chat going where they can ask questions, but it's not really impacting how they're running their podcast. It's just additional content. And it's a way for them to continue to build their community, right? Because the same people show up to watch it, and they kind of get that insider look at what's going on and the conversations that are going on, and a little bit of, what goes on during a session when they're starting and having off, side conversations. So it's another way to do it. It's another way to create extra content. And it's the same kind of thing where it does get streamed out for the people who want to watch it live. But then by creating a local recording, the people who are running the podcast can take bits, and then they use those for ads or for social media or whatever. Because again, the behind the scenes thing, as humans, we like to peek behind the curtain, right? We like to see what's going on. And so it's a great way to get people's attention. Now, this is just a subset, this is a list of, off the top of my head, how you can do this type of thing. Basically, anything that you can dream up that involves a video recording and or a live stream is something that a remote producer can help you with. So don't feel limited by my list. Your options are out there and can be whatever you want them to be. Alrighty, so just check to see if any questions, because I'm just about to wrap up, because now we're getting to the good part of working with a remote producer. I'm just going to get into some of the high level, like what you're going to do and how it's all going to work thing. But let me just make sure. Okay, so we're just chatting and saying hi. Totally cool. Happy to see that. Okay, so this is fun. So this is just a quick aside. So John is in my class. He's my moderator. And we've been having a weird problem with Facebook, but I don't have to worry about it during the stream because I know John's got eyes on things. But just for your own information, John, so normally, lately, I've had to look at my phone to see if there are Facebook comments, but today I'm not seeing it on my phone, but I am seeing it in vMix Social. So Another thing that a remote producer can do is bring comments on screen. Here, I'll just bring one on. We'll bring Marcus saying hi on. Marcus won't mind. He's very flexible about this stuff, right? So this is something else a remote producer can do for certain platforms. It doesn't work on all the platforms, but things like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, IRC, depending on where you are, that might be an option for you. Okay, and thank you, Marcus, for posting a comment and one that I could share with the universe here. All right, so if you decide that you want to give this a try, you're going to have to do, a little searching. Hello. To get somebody who can help you with this kind of thing. And we are out there, and there are more of us joining, so it will become easier for people to find somebody. Just as an aside, not only have I been doing it myself, but now I've actually joined a group of people who are doing it. So okay, so let me just back up a second. I talked about the event I did last night. That's one level of an event. With this other group, and the link is in the description in case you want to go check them out. I'm working for them, so hence why I'm so happy to recommend them. Also, they're awesome. Like, it's an awesome team of people. Not only do we do events like we did where I just brought in a couple of people and they were sharing a screen and all that kind of stuff, we do multi-day, multi-speaker, Jagunda size events. So we did an event I guess it was January, that was 3 days. I lost track. 16, 17 speakers, broken across the 3 days, with breaks and all that kind of stuff. We had multiple Zoom rooms, and we were able to bring in everybody so that everybody could see everybody, including the speakers. That was the big thing for the speakers, was because with all the remote stuff, like they weren't getting that same feedback that they're used to getting, like when they do this, in a convention hall. So we were able to show them and show all of the other people attending everybody, so that everybody could see everybody, see everything that's going on, react to everything that was going on. Some of them just spoke. Some of them had, slides and presentations to do. So this is a very scalable thing, depending on what it is that you need. Whatever you can dream up, there's a solution for. It's just going to change the level of remote production team that you're going to need to work with. Doing something like I did last night, I did that whole thing myself, no problem. When you start to talk about multi-day events, multiple speakers, needing a green room to, have people ready to go, if you're looking to bring an audience member onto the screen or just on a voice to talk to the presenters and all of that levels up. And, makes it more complicated, but it is all solvable, and it just requires a slightly bigger team. When you hire somebody, you're going to have meetings. Yay, more meetings. But you're going to need these meetings, and these will be interesting meetings for you, because you're going to have a conversation about what your goals are, right? What your audience is looking for, what you want for your audience. And then you're going to work with them to plan out the content and the flow of that content. And the remote producer is going to want to nail that down as much as possible before you go live. However, things will change along the way, and that's fine, because remote producers are totally equipped to handle that. So if your plan was to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and for whatever reason you went 1, 4, 3, 4, 5, whatever, they'll just adjust and they'll go, and nobody will be any the wiser. You may not even realize it until after things are done, and they say, okay, well, you made that switch, but it was fine. Nobody, we went with it and it was fine. And they went, oh, I didn't even realize I did that. Happens all the time, so don't worry about it. But you will want to nail it down as much as possible, especially in the early days when you're both getting familiar with each other. Because the more time you work with somebody, the more you start to pick up on their little, cues, and it makes it easier to do those kinds of shifts. So that's just how it's going to start. If you're going to work with somebody on a daily, weekly, monthly basis for your content, you're going to have regular meetings, right? Because you're going to need to talk about what the next one is. If you're doing daily or weekly, you're probably going to want to meet, once a month at least, and plan out as much as what's coming up as you can. Again, if it changes, then accommodations will be made. But, for that kind of thing. And if you're doing it once a month or once a quarter or whatever, obviously you won't need to have as many meetings. But the more communication you have, the more you're sharing with them about what it is you want to do, what you're planning, and then what changes, the better off they'll be, be able to help you and plan things out, and the smoother everything will run. A part of that process will be identifying what you want on screen. So, are you going to be celebrating? Do you want overlays? Do you not? Do you want a ticker? Do you want a QR code up in the corner, right? All of these things are possible, but they need to be discussed and they need to be prepped for, right? So, the QR code didn't come into existence because I just had the thought. Like, I had to generate it. I had to create the image. It has to be built into the plan. Same with all these things. So that's where you're going to need to have these conversations. You're going to need to identify things. You'll probably need to provide them with your logo. If they're doing scheduling for you, you're going to need to give them the title and maybe a description, or maybe they'll write that for you. That's something you'll work out with them. Again, with the thumbnail, maybe you're going to create it. Maybe you have a graphic designer. Maybe they'll create it. All of this will come out of the conversations that you have, and everybody, knows what they're doing. Then everything will go fine. I kind of alluded to this before, but when you're working with a remote producer, they're going to help you test your audio and video. They're going to test it and get you set up in the beginning, but you'll also do that before the shows most of the time. Ideally all the time, but things happen, right? Last minute stuff, especially when you're doing regular content. But they're going to test your audio, your video, your internet connection, make sure everything is crisp and clear and your connection is steady. And if not, make those last minute tweaks. We were doing that last night. Oh, well, I keep saying last night, it was yesterday morning, but time lost all meaning because we literally pulled this together in a couple of days. So the hour before we started, just verifying everything. And then, as always happens, 10 or 15 minutes before we're going to go live, things changed. Somebody had a bulb blowout on one, not yesterday, but a previous one. Their lighting was all perfect, and then the light died. It's like, yesterday, I mentioned, everybody was working fine, right? They were on camera, their connection was good, everything was fine. And then for some reason, halfway through, one speaker's mic went bonkers on us and started giving us all this weird noise and everything. While the thing went on, I was working with their local producer and her trying to get it all back. This is the kind of stuff that happens, but this is the kind of stuff you can count on your remote producer for. So sharing the assets, sharing information, all that kind of stuff. And then what they'll do is they'll get you into a rhythm with it, right? So just before the show starts, you'll just verify, yes, we're talking about this. Yes, I'm doing this. Oh, but I changed, this one thing. Great. They'll make a note of it, work it in. And then deep breath time, right? That little reminder that you can do this, you're great. You've got this. And they will then start to get everything rolling, and then we'll give you a countdown letting you know that things are about to go live. Then they're going to turn their mic off. And depending again on the tool, like one of the reasons I like vMix Calls, because you can see a picture of what's happening on the screen, like what's getting ready to go out. So you'll know that, okay, it's switched on. You'll know, they'll tell you, wait 3 beats or 5 beats or whatever, and then start talking. And from that point on, all you have to do is concentrate on talking to your audience, and the remote producer is going to handle all of the switching and the information that needs to come up and all of the stuff that you've already worked out with them that you want to happen at these different points. Probably not all of that at once, but you get the idea. Let's make that go away. That one. And they will handle all of that for you, and you won't have the things where stuff is happening out of sync because they'll have taken care of that for you. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what we mean by remote production for video or live streams and what it is a remote producer does. Make sense? Everybody good? Okay, great. So if you do have any questions or comments, if you have something that you would like me to cover on the show, you can go to yourtechcoach.com. There is a form there that you can fill out. Let me know what your question is. Let me know what topic you want me to cover. That's where most of the good topics come from. So feel totally fine about that. And I had another thought and it just flew away because it's been that kind of a day. But hey, I made it this far through the show before that happened. I'm going to take that as the win because, whew, it's been a hectic couple of days. So I hope everybody is having a good week. We're halfway through the summer. I know we're all kind of melting. It's July when I'm recording this. So hopefully everybody's temperature is okay. I am here every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I bring a topic. You are always welcome to come and hang out in the chat and talk, ask other questions, ask questions about this topic, whatever works. If you're watching on the replay, same rules apply, except that it's not real time. So you can go ahead. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you need help with something, you can go ahead and put that into the comments, and I do come back and check on those. Okay. And like I said, if you're interested in remote production, you can either come and you can make an appointment with me if you'd like to talk about it and learn more. Or you can go to the link that's in the description if you want to work with me and the larger team on some stuff. And again, it doesn't matter what size your project is. If you just want more options, that is also an option for you. So whichever way works. Or you can also use the appointments thing, by the way. If you just have a tech question or you need help with something, you can go ahead and make an appointment there. My fees are very reasonable because I like to give people as much help as I possibly can. All right, so that is it. I will see you again next week. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon. Bye. Oh, by the way, this is an outro. Bye, Marcus.